Hi everyone. Happy Wednesday. How is everyone today? I am here. I'm looking forward to talking with you today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Manisha Tare, and today I'm going to be talking about just some of the physical manifestations that can be a result of just some of the emotional holding that we're doing. So this comes up a lot for my clients. This is something that I have moved through and continue to move through. I have said this before, but I have a super sensitive nervous system. And so as a result of that, I feel that I pick up a lot of things that are happening in the environment, whether they're like on the street or whether they're with other people. And so for a long time, I don't think I really realized this. And so learning this about myself has really helped shift how I experience it and then how I navigate it. And so there are a couple of different layers that I want to talk about here. One, that some of the physical manifestations, whether it's pain or an injury that shows up, or an anxiety or like a heaviness somewhere in our bodies, whether it's that sensation in our stomachs that show up when we're anxious, or whether it shows up in maybe a digestive issue, or perhaps like we get headaches when we're dealing with something, and we can see the correlation of like, oh, I'm feeling stressed and I have this headache, or this other thing that's showing up in my body, or it can be something more chronic where you've had some sort of more of like I would say like maybe a deterioration somewhere in your body over time. I've shared a couple of times in the past that I've had a few shoulder injuries. I've had frozen shoulders on both sides, so it's been quite the life experience for me. And there are lots of ways that I handled it, and kind of could have handled it, like looking at it purely from the physical. But thankfully, pretty on in that journey for me, my attention was like really brought into like some of the more energetic and emotional pieces of that. And so that's where I was able to work. Not that I didn't work on the physical realm, but I also like really explored the energetic and the emotional realm. And so this has been coming up for some of the really wonderful people that I work with, where they're noticing like some of these body symptoms. And I have been a yoga teacher for a long time. I've done body work called craniosacral for a long time, and now I primarily work virtually. And so it can kind of be difficult to understand with our minds, like, well, how does that really work? Because you're not like for me, I was like, well, I'm not touching somebody's body. And this is like where really the emotional and the energetic pieces come in so strongly, because often that, the result, which is perhaps an injury or like a lack of range of motion or like some other physical, limitation or pain or tension, is probably, I can't say for sure, but for a lot of people, it's like built up over time. And this could be years, years of like holding on to something or holding on to a belief system that we did not realize that we had been holding on to because we picked it up as a child, or we've even picked it up in the experience of being in our mother's womb. So there's a lot of places where we can, absorb different patterns, especially if you are really sensitive and empathic, and you probably are to some degree if you're here. There can be a lot of absorption of things from our environment that we are not aware of. And then when we're young, we really, just don't have a lot of the awareness, and we're sponges. You always hear about that, like kids are sponges. And so, if we have these tendencies to want to be helpful, to want to not have somebody else be in pain or suffer, then we might start to just energetically pick up on a lot of other people's stuff. So that's like one layer of, picking up on other people's stuff, having it like reside in your body, having that experience like as if it was you, and not really recognizing like this could be somebody else's stuff that I've been carrying, and now it's like showing up as this illness, or, this hormonal issue, or, can result in like so many different things. And then there's also the level of like, okay, something is showing up in my body, and, it might be something unresolved that we have experienced, and we have set like a belief system around it, and it is still like hanging out in our bodies, and it's maybe revealing itself in some way through an experience that we're having in present time to take us, to help show us like where we have to go, or what we might need to unpack or uncover in order to resolve, not only the emotional issue, which we may or may not actually even realize we're having, but then also subsequently the physical issue. So I hope this is making sense. If you have questions about this, I'd love to hear, and you're welcome to just put them in the comments. You're welcome to also message me privately if it feels like it's something that's like a little more private. But this is, coming up a lot in different sessions where we're talking about, how do we work with these feelings and emotions and sensations? And it's really, I think, part of just how our society is wired, and like what we feel is the most important thing as we go to trying to just go to all the mental patterns, which actually are really, can be really, really helpful in terms of awareness to understand like what is the dynamic, what's happening here, like what could have contributed to it. And so like I see that as sort of this like top layer of like, oh, okay, like now I'm sort of getting the picture of what might be affecting me and like all the different pieces. So okay, great, like I've got that down. Not that you ever have it down, in my opinion. I think there's lots of things to constantly uncover and unlayer, in our lives. However, it's helpful sometimes to have like those pieces, like, okay, I get this pattern, like these various things can contribute to it. And that's like on a mind level. And our mind's like something to kind of hold on to understand, to put in some sort of, framework or paradigm, because we're operating in those paradigms regardless of whether we're conscious of them or not, or whether we can articulate them or not. So you go to that place, and then you drop underneath, and you're like, oh, what's going on in my body? Like, what are some of the sensations that are showing up? So, so how this might work in real life is, if you're having some sort of like pain, or like something's coming up for you physically, you might take, 5 minutes to pause and get really still, because my experience and how I support others and is like creating that container to like, let's get still together and really slow down and recognize what's going on and really start to feel it. A lot of times we have pushed that experience or emotion aside because it doesn't feel good to feel it. It's uncomfortable. It can bring up a lot of emotions that might feel overwhelming, like deep sadness or grief or fear. And that's why I feel that it's, I think you can absolutely do a lot of this work on your own. But I also feel like when you're in those places where you're feeling really stuck, it can be incredibly helpful and so valuable to just have another person like help and hold space for you. I mean, I've had that. I've been really blessed to have that in my life with a lot of incredible healers and other practitioners. So I certainly know the benefits of that. But anyway, so if you're working with something that, doesn't feel huge in the moment, you can absolutely, take some time out, 5-10 minutes, and just let yourself like really feel what is happening underneath. Because often when we just get quiet and still and we're not dealing with a lot of other distractions on the outside, we can at least feel like, oh, okay, what are the sensations happening in my body? Like, oh, this feels prickly, or there's like a sharp sensation here, or it feels heavy, like and those are things that you probably don't recognize like in that detail on a regular basis. Maybe you're like, I feel it's pain or it's uncomfortable. But when you pay attention, it's like your body, our bodies are so wise, your body is like basically yelling at you to like, hey, I'm over here, like pay attention to me. And so when we start to pay attention, we might notice some of the sensations start to shift because we are actually paying attention to them. And so it's like, oh, you just gave me this attention. Like now I'm going to communicate with you more, and I might do it this way, I might do it that way. And then I can go underneath again and say like, oh, is there an emotion that's kind of attached to this? Like, what is coming up for me? And then start to notice that. And if you just give yourself a little bit of time, like every day, 5 minutes every day, whether or not you have something active that you're working with, like I would be really curious actually, like what would start to happen in your body. I really believe that the emotions and experiences we hold can create such a huge heaviness in our bodies if we don't allow them to move. And when they're flowing, when we're expressing them, or we don't always have to express them like to the outside world, we can just like express them and acknowledge them to ourselves. It's like we're paying attention to them, they're moving, and so they are in flow, and so then they don't get stuck in our system. But if we've had like these years of time where we've inadvertently buried something because there just wasn't the space there to express it, or maybe you did express it and it wasn't really received well, so then that shut you down, and that's been your pattern. We can, if we start to do that every day, like it doesn't always feel good in the moment, but like I would be really curious to see what would happen over time for you, to see if it would shift something in your energetic field, or if you would just feel a little bit lighter or happier, or maybe less like anxious, or less of the experience of some sort of pain or weightedness. So this is, these are some of the ways and tools that I use to explore this for myself and with other people. I'd be really curious to hear just like what you think about this in general, because I think that some of the biggest weight that we carry around is actually emotional weight. And if you're able to slow down and start to go inside and start to track that and kind of trace that to where it's really coming from, not from a place of your mind, but really from a place of connecting with your body, connecting in with, your spirit, connecting with your soul, like however you choose to sort of identify that part of yourself that's, the part that knows, or like the really wise part. That's the part that we can go to for some of these like more subconscious answers. I don't know if answers is exactly the right word, but some really connect in with some of the subconscious patterns that are actually what's leading our lives. And that's kind of where the gold is, doing this work really from the inside out. And for me, just because of the way I am like wired and sort of my own makeup, I tend to go like deep into the roots. And so, sometimes that can feel a little bit overwhelming because you're going down deep in there. But I can tell you that when you're in a place, not everyone is ready to do this at any given time. Like sometimes you're really moving through something very acutely. And so that's the time to do more like resourcing of yourself, to just really like take it slow, take it easy, maybe do some more gentle stuff, more gentle meditations, or like some kind of movement practice that helps you like get into the flow of things. And that might be like actually really, really perfect for what you need at that time, to then slowly help you, clear some of that, move some of that, feel a little safer to go into some of the deeper stuff. And it's all good. There's no like, this is better than that. I see it as like a process or a range. And, I've certainly experienced, in the beginning when I shared about my injury, like where I was at that time was really just like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm a yoga teacher. Like, why is my shoulder not moving anymore? Like, none of it made sense. And so where I was at that time was just like trying to like slow it down, really listen to my body, working with a lot of different practitioners to understand what was going on. And then when I moved through some of that, and the injury, the physical parts of the injuries finally healed because of just the whole range of things I was doing, then I was like ready to go into some of the, the deeper, more subconscious patterns. Like, in a conscious way, if that makes sense. Really dropping in a way where I'm like really ready to uproot some of these things so that I can understand this better. Sorry, there's like something floating in front of me. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you if it was. Comments, or again, I know this can be a pretty like personal topic depending what you're going through. So you are welcome to message me. If you need some support with this, this is the work I do, so you can message me there as well. I'll just drop a link at the bottom in the comments for a free call if you're interested in exploring this. I offer a clarity call to like really just talk through with somebody like what's actually going on for you, like what's coming up presently, and okay, let's see, like tell me a little bit about what you think this is related to, and then we actually do just like a really like mini process of dropping into what their experience is so that they can start to get a feel of like what is this really about. And you know, if that feels like a good process, then we can talk about ways to work together a little more in depth so that we can really get to some of those patterns. But if you're curious or interested, I really highly encourage you to just take a look at the schedule and book a call. It's totally free, and we just have an opportunity to connect and see if this is, like, you know, just the right fit for you in terms of the kind of work that you might be looking for, that you just might be needing at this given time. I find that for me, things show up in my life at the exact moment that I need them. So hopefully this information was helpful to you in the moment that you needed it, and I will talk to you next time. Okay, bye.